And do you see single-payer universal health care as being mandated to be fully inclusive?
Yeah, and if we're not all in the same pool, what we're going to have are, healthy, wealthy people migrate to a private system, and sick people or people with pre-existing conditions or just have bad set of genetics go into the public pool, and the public pool then goes bankrupt. And so what we end up with is feeding the private industry, which has left so many people without health care.
And so many times single-payer health care comes up, and I'm wondering if you could take a moment to maybe explain your vision of what that means in simple English, because the name of it doesn't really carry the weight of what it really means.
Well, I think if you go on the minus side, people would no longer be paying the premiums that are going up every year by 15–16% to private healthcare companies. It'd be a taxation system, and the Conyers bill actually has a way to pay for it. It's a variety of taxes. It's not just one, but everybody's in the same pool. Private doctors get you get to pick your doctor.
Existing taxes and revenue sources, is it not?
Yes, and there may be one or two under 2 or 3% increases in other forms of taxation. But remember, you're not paying your $900 premium a month, so there is some money.
And under that system, then LGBT families would not have to worry about whether their employer has a diversity policy, because they would be covered automatically.
This is part of your compensation package. That's why I struggle with how people view this. If you go to an employer and want to get a job, and you're gay and I'm not, or I'm gay and you're not, and they offer you a compensation package that's less because they won't cover your partner, I get it because I'm straight. That's economic unfairness.
And a single-payer system would eliminate that.
Yeah. Well, everybody would be covered.
Right.
And it wouldn't be predicated on being, accepted by an employer as a partner.
I want to touch briefly on what might be a somewhat uncomfortable question, and it was sent in, so I'll just read it. How do you respond to people who claim that because of your experience in politics, that you are too connected to the current system to be a force for real change?
Thank you. I was Senate President here, and as you know, the states struggle with a federal government that is not a partner. And so having 7 years of experience here at the State House, seeing all of the failures of the federal government as states try to implement things like education reform, as we try to provide health care and community health services, I think I was in a perfect position to see exactly what's wrong with the federal government. If experience is a detriment, then there are a lot of people at the top of their game who ought not to be doing the jobs they're doing. I feel comfortable with the work I've done here in the Colorado Senate and helping to change Colorado. We changed an agenda. That takes skill, and it takes learning, and it takes understanding not only policy but procedure and people. And it's something that I think I'm good at.
Do you think that those kinds of questions are motivated by a lack of understanding of what has actually happened while you were president of our Senate, or do you think it's just a larger malaise about the federal government?
I think it's a catchword about change, and George Bush was change. He was a change from the Clintons.
Yes, we started off at $1.46 a gallon, and
we got change. What we really want is people who are thoughtful, dedicated to the process, work hard, and at their core have the right values.
What do you think is the most, or are among the most urgent problems facing the nation, and how do you plan to address them as a brand new member of Congress?
The nation's hurting. We've lost our way. The Senate approved the FISA legislation allowing the government to wiretap its citizens without a court order. These are violations of the Constitution, very fundamental problems for the American people. As they look at all the encroachments on the Constitution, they've got to be worried. I think members of the gay community should be especially worried when we start to allow the Constitution to be eroded in any manner, shape, or form. We're basically saying, well, that wasn't about me, it's about the next guy. And that's where history has shown us we get into trouble.
I wonder if you can tell us, what are the main differences between you and your opponents in this particular race, meaning Jared Polis and Will Shafroth?
I think, from a level of where we're starting, if we were both to walk onto the House floor in Washington, I come in from a perspective of more of a local government You know, I have served in the state Senate here. I've had leadership here. And I think leadership is something that's so sorely lacking at the federal level. Someone who's willing to stand up and take the hits. And someone who's willing to stand up on principle and say, you know, this is too important. We do have substantive differences on No Child Left Behind. I want to get rid of it. I don't think you fix bad bills, and both of my opponents think it ought to be fixed. You know, when the framework is bad, and it was a punitive framework, why start from that premise? Let's get rid of it, have the funding flow, and do it in a way that enhances critical thinking skills and public education and doesn't punish it. I don't like either NAFTA or CAFTA. Those are differences. Free trade, I think, has hurt this country, and it's left broken promises south of the border as well, where they closed factories when they got too expensive, when the labor got too expensive. They never enforced environmental concerns. They never did, you know, workers' rights down there. And I know now we're looking at a free trade treaty with Colombia. They've killed more labor leaders in Colombia over the course of the last 2 years. What are we thinking? This isn't good. We've got those policy differences, and Iraq, of course, where both Will and Jared want a timeline. And I say, Congress, you're the appropriating arm of government. Stand up for 3 separate but equal branches and say we're done. And let the generals figure out how they safely get our troops out. Because there is no military solution to Iraq. And why we continue to think there is one when it's a political solution baffles my mind.
Thank you so much for taking the time to answer these questions for us, and let us introduce you to our viewers as we get ready for the primary on August 12th.
Thanks so much, Eden.